to order for the work session, the 5 o'clock work session here for Goldsboro City Council, March 4th. So with that, Ms. Getz, if you'd please do a roll call.
Mayor Gaylor.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Matthews.
Present.
Councilwoman Jones.
Here.
Councilman Boyette.
Here.
Councilwoman Taylor.
Present.
Councilwoman Weeks.
Present.
Councilman White.
Here.
All right. All present and accounted for. Have an adoption of the agenda.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion that we amend the agenda and remove item L and item M from the consent agenda items and table that for individual discussion at our next meeting.
Okay. That is the item L and M for the record are temporary street closures. One for a June 7th, August 2nd event, another for a November 30th event. Not fully knowing all this, there's another temporary street closure as well, item K. Is that one also one to come up, or is that one to be resolved, or is your motion just L and M?
L and M.
Okay. All right, there's been a motion made to remove item L and M from the consent agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, there's been a motion made and seconded to remove item L and M from the consent agenda. Is there any discussion?
Yes. Well, why,
Councilman White.
why we actually remove it?
I want to have some discussion with the applicant and see if we can reach a compromise. I'm sure you saw her email, and I just haven't had time to reach out to her this week. I've been extremely busy, and the ones that are immediate are already approved, and these are future, so I didn't think it would be an issue to address it at our next meeting. And there's some policy change that's going on and all that, so in light of the discussion that we had the last time, I would like an opportunity to speak with the applicant, and I think there's going to be some additional changes to the policy beyond, possibly with some wording, is my understanding, beyond the proposed policy change that's before us tonight that adjusts the fees and stuff. So I think my thought process was if we move it into the next agenda, I would like to have a discussion with the applicant, and it would give other council members an opportunity as well to see if we can reach a resolution there that the applicant is happy with if we have a couple more weeks.
No taking, but I do want to be on the record that whatever it is, she should be grandfathered in because her decision was made prior to the policy going into effect.
I agree.
And is it possible so that everybody is a part of the same discussion? I would much rather see how we all can speak with her. I think we all kind of heard from her and her passion and her vision when she came to speak before council about this before. I don't know what changes you're talking about, Councilman Boyette, or additional changes, so I don't know what conversations you have had before, but in my mind, if we're gonna remove K and, L and M, I also wanna take off P. It just doesn't seem fair that we're taking off two, whether it's happening today or tomorrow. It just doesn't seem fair that we're gonna remove those and we're gonna allow another one to stay up here that is still pending council's approval.
I think that P is, from my understanding, that's the policy revision that's separate from the request of the applicant, and I'm sort of in agreement with Councilman White that whatever we do with the policy, I think the applicant already has her paperwork in, so I think that some credence should be given to that. I just would like to discuss those two items further before we move forward on them, and I was hoping that wouldn't be an issue to just move it forward one meeting, since that would not cause any conflict at all for the applicant.
Okay, so let me ask you, just for consideration, if we are, because I agree, if we grandfather her in a sense, and I hate to use that word, but if we're gonna do that and allow her to still operate under what we have now, do we need to remove it? if we're gonna still grant her permission and we're still gonna approve it, can't we just keep it up here and go ahead and approve it? And you can still have your conversations moving forward.
From what I understand, these new street closures, for clarity, let us know, Mayor, if this is correct. We've already approved her previous street closures, but she's seeking additional street closures. These are going to be new ones in addition to what were already approved. So she's asking for additional street closures, and that's why he was wanting to table it until we could revisit the policy.
And I really think we should give, regardless whether it was Councilman Boyette or whoever, if we are going to work together, I think we should allow him the opportunity to talk with the individual.
And I have not spoken with her. Item P is something that I've been working with the city clerk for to try and get some consistency. You know, a conversation that we had a few meetings ago about trying to have a policy in place that does create an equal financial footing for if you're reserving a street versus using an actual venue and doing away with the financial incentive to use the street. So item P is the one that I have kind of pursued with the aid of the clerk. Item L and M, I've not spoken with the applicant. Just to put that on the table for everybody.
And then too, I'm not against you speaking to him, Councilman Boyette, so Ms. Jones, I hope you didn't interpret it that way. I just would like that conversation to be privileged to all of us who have to make a decision moving forward about that. So I don't know if we can invite her to do a presentation or whatever you want to ask her particularly may be some of our same concerns. So I would like to, I don't know if you want to know something special or different, but I have to make a decision on that as well, which is why I asked, you know, so. But I support it. If you want to move it, I'm okay with that. I just, if we can have her here, because I think, you know, we may all have some questions. I don't, but.
Any other discussion on the motion as presented? To restate, the motion as presented is to remove items L and M from the consent agenda. Is that properly stated?
Yes, sir.
There was also, you know, the word tabled was used, but I think the original motion was to remove L and M from the consent agenda
I
this
have,
evening.
and then remove it and add it to items requiring action at the March 18th meeting.
Okay, so truly tabling to the March 18th meeting under items requiring individual action. Is there any further discussion? All right, all in favor of approving the agenda as modified, please raise your hands. All opposed, same sign. Seeing none, motion passes. All right, thank you. So we will remove item L and M. For the record, just restating, they will be moved to the March 18th meeting under items requiring individual action. And we will discuss, the clerk and I will discuss what the best way is to be able to have her present to be able to discuss the things. All right, so with that, we have an agenda. We do not have any old business on the agenda, so we'll move directly into new business. Item A is a nonprofit allocation review. Ms. Archibald.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. It's good to be here this evening, and I am coming to present to you just a reminder of our process that was approved last year. We were privileged to be able to work with you to help facilitate the allocations of nonprofit funding. So you have my presentation. Do I need to do something to get that going?
There you go.
All right. And hopefully you have this too. I'm not sure if this is actually on there, but I just wanted, hopefully you have this, but this is just showing the actual process and the plan that was put together specific to the city of Goldsboro. All right. So I'm just going to share, just to remind you a little bit about us, and coming forward last year, United Way of Wayne County is known for the work that they do in vetting nonprofits and working with them for growth capacity and for being able to produce some impactful work in our community and in communities all over the world. United Ways are all over the world. There's 1,100 of them in the United States. There's 48 of them in North Carolina, but United Way of Wayne County serves Wayne County. And this is a little bit about some of the programs and the impact that we had in 2023. So I wanted to share that with you. We just finished our annual audit and our annual meeting, so we were able to share some of these statistics from 2023. And this is looking at our 2023 programs and partners. So it lists the 4 focus areas that we have, which are health and wellness, financial stability, basic needs, and education. And so all of the organizations that we partner with and their programs do work around one or more of those particular focus areas. And our process, which has been around for decades, is to invite nonprofits to apply for funding. And their applications are reviewed by our Community Impact Committee. They are looked at, and also site visits take place, and there's also an actual meeting that they all come together to discuss what's the best way to be able to impact the community with the applications that are coming through. They make recommendations, and those recommendations go to our board, and our board of directors makes the approval. So last year, when I came to you to talk to you about providing some support to your process, this is the information that I shared with you. I've added a few bullets to that because it's changed just in the last year. So it shares with you our impact from last year. And also, as you'll see, I have added on there the City of Goldsboro nonprofit funding. We worked for you as a vendor. We provided a service for you, so we did this at a fee, and it was 10%. And I'm excited to share with you, while it was for a fee and it was a service, that 10% equated to $10,000. And I've shared with you 2 brochures that you have in front of you. They are on our community support program and our voucher recovery program. These are 2 programs that we actually just initiated last fall. And so I want to share with you that the $10,000 that we received for the service went into these 2 programs. $5,000 went into the community support program, and $5,000 went into the recovery voucher program. So we appreciate that we had that service, but it also went right back into the community. So it was a privilege to be able to do that. You'll also see that we annually work with the FEMA's Emergency Food and Shelter Program. We've been doing that since 1999. These are just some other ways that we process vetting programs similarly to what we did with the City of Goldsboro. And this is the reason that I'm here. Since there are lots of new folks here, I'm just here to share the process with you that we took to be able to create a specific process for the City of Goldsboro. One of the things just to point out to you, this was our timeline. When I came to you last year, we had to create a timeline that we could follow and just really make sure that we were getting the work done, because I knew it was going to be time for us to run campaign. And so we wanted to make sure that we were creating it specific to your needs. So we sent out a survey to all the City Council asking for your specific priorities. This was not United Way's process. This was the City of Goldsboro's process. And so we created the Notice of Funding Opportunity specific to the City of Goldsboro with the Council's priorities. We invited community to engage in the process by making recommendations. And then we took those recommendations back to you, and you all approved that. And so we started the process after your approval in working with the city's finance department, and we worked very closely with them to make sure that all the documentation that they need is received and on hand, and then we asked them to make payments. They made this first payment in September, and so I just recently submitted the request for the second payments, and they are working through those right now. So the reporting is due in May, and it will be shared back with you all at that time as well. So, any questions that I can answer for you about our process and how that worked?
Any questions from council? Please continue.
I'm sorry?
I said no questions from council.
Okay. I think the next step is when you are deciding how you'll move forward, if you want me to come back forward, if you need to open that up for other nonprofits or other organizations to potentially apply to do that, just let me know, and we'll be glad to come forward and share that with you.
Have you gone and, I'll just ask, I'm curious, and if you don't want to answer this on the spot, I do not blame you. Have you had any conversations with any of the other governmental units in our county to see if they're going to be funneling funding through you again?
You mean through United Way?
Yeah, through
Okay,
United
no,
Way.
I haven't had any of those conversations. And we did not, the other, through the county, we did not do that last year. When we did, it was for coronavirus funds.
That's right.
So it wasn't the typical, usual nonprofit cycle. Mhm.
Any other comments or questions from council? No? Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Mr. Livingston, I believe we have a new employee to introduce.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. Not exactly a new employee. We do have a new GIS manager, and I kind of would like to make it a practice when we hire major managers or department heads in the city to kind of give them a chance to introduce themselves and kind of tell you a little bit about what they do and what they would like to do in the future. We have Mr. Dylan Scheffler, who's now the new GIS manager.
Good
Mr.
afternoon.
Zephyr, welcome.
Thank you. So my name is Dylan Schreffler. I was recently promoted to the GIS manager position for the city of Goldsboro. Is there the next slide? So just a little bit about my background. I'm originally from Goldsboro. I was born and raised here. I attended Wayne Christian School. Upon graduation from Wayne Christian, I pursued a Bachelor's of Science in Geographic Information Science and Technology from ECU. And my professional experience includes being a GIS technician for Pike Engineering, where I was mapping electrical utilities. And after Pike, I came to the city of Goldsboro to work as a GIS specialist, specializing mainly in water, sewer, and stormwater utilities, until just very recently being promoted to the GIS manager position. So some current GIS projects that we're undergoing here at the city of Goldsboro. We are going through the stormwater inventory project, which is a $1.4 million project, and the lead and copper service line inventory project, which is a $2 million project. The stormwater inventory project consists of infrastructure inventory and condition assessment of the stormwater assets for the city. We're collecting survey-grade physical locations of all of our stormwater assets, along with detailed attribute information about our stormwater. It's going to be the most comprehensive stormwater mapping that the city's ever seen. So it's pretty great. We got invert rim elevations, and we're going to be able to hopefully do some stormwater modeling in the future. With the infrastructure inventory and condition assessment, we also have the GIS data development itself that we're undergoing. So we're implementing the ArcGIS stormwater utility network solution, which is the latest and greatest for stormwater mapping, for utility mapping in general. No, along with that, we're going to be implementing some applications and dashboards along with that. So we're going to have some digital BMP inspection forms and some digital outfall inspection forms, along with dashboards monitoring the status of those inspections. We're also going to implement a dashboard regarding the system as a whole, so we'll be able to get some real-time statistics on the data that we have in the field. Hopefully, we're going to be able to implement that into our water and sewer systems as well. The lead copper service line inventory was a requirement as part of the lead and copper rules revision. It was passed down by the EPA to conduct an inventory of all water service lines within the city, customer and utility side, documenting the material of those lines. So this system is completely in-house through GIS. We're collecting the data in the field currently. The data and applications are hosted locally. And so the action includes the identification and notification. So if we identify a service line that's made of lead, we'd notify the customer and replace the line. We want to make sure that our citizens are drinking clean water and using clean water. So some more internal GIS initiatives that we're currently going through. Right now, we're focusing on staffing. We want to replace the GIS specialist position. That's the position that I was in before I was promoted to manager. Engineering needs that GIS specialist. We got to keep those utility networks maintained. We don't want to lose that data. So we're going to keep on keeping on with that. I said GIS interns in the slide, but I think we're going to dial it back to one for now. We're going to try to get a GIS intern in here for the summer. Hopefully that will be a great learning experience for somebody to come and work for the city, and that'll be mainly with the engineering aspect, on the utility maps. We might put them in planning a little bit, have them work with some zoning maps or anything like that, but that's still to be determined. So Mark is in the process of hiring a planner one with GIS experience. That's going to lead us into keeping up with our planning data. We've got a zoning map. I think the zoning map is our only public-facing GIS application. So we want to make sure that data is accurate and upkept. Some more internal initiatives just by department. The planning, like I was saying before, that zoning map, we want to make sure that's up to date. And we're also looking to implement a future and current development map so we can be more transparent with what's going on in the city. I think it'll be really beneficial for the public to go on the site and check out. We have just the developments that are coming in, and it's good information to know. Within engineering, I'd like to implement some more utility map functionality, allowing our users in-house to be able to run analysis themselves rather than just view. I think that there's a lot more functionality that we're not utilizing yet, and so we're going to work to move towards getting that up to date. Same thing with engineering in the signal and sign shop. We want to get a sign inventory map, hopefully getting a nice comprehensive map of all the city maintained signs, and maybe even some things where the public can report if a sign is missing or damaged and things like that. It's just kind of, allowing us to keep our signs properly maintained. Some things that are going on the back end. Our IT department is currently undergoing the domain migration with GIS, so to push GIS's domain to be more cohesive with the rest of the Goldsboro NC.gov sites. We don't currently use the Goldsboro NC.gov, so we're moving over to that. And they're adding some additional servers in the background, which is going to beef up our system quite a bit and allow us to do more things. So some external GIS initiatives that I'd like to see are more public-facing web applications. Like I was saying before, that zoning map is really the only public-facing thing that we have related to GIS. I'd like to see a public-facing utility map. I receive a lot of calls from developers asking for snippets of utilities. I think it probably wastes their time to have to ask somebody when they can go and check it themselves, and I think it will be more efficient for them to be able to have that option to go and check out the site that they're looking to develop by themselves. And then also a public-facing city-owned property map. I think that's important that we keep that up to date, and we have a nice inventory of our city-owned property and the usage of the property. I'm currently working on that. It's actually done, so that should be shortly. Just the external GIS, I just think it's important that we share our data. We have a lot of GIS data and not a lot of public-facing web applications, so it's going to be cool in the coming years to see what we can share and what we can develop, and just for the citizens to utilize. Then we already collaborate a lot with the county. The county has some great GIS data, but we want to continue collaborating with the county and have some more collaboration with our enterprise systems. So some future GIS initiatives. We want to boost city employee efficiency. And like I was saying with that utility map, it takes resources to create maps. And if we allow the public to access the information that they're seeking, then people in GIS wouldn't have to actually go out and make the map. The map's already made. They can access it themselves. And then I'd like to see GIS in other departments as well. I mean, there's a large focus on engineering, planning, public utilities, public works. There's a lot of usages for GIS. It can reach its hands into many different departments. I think that the emergency services, police and fire can utilize GIS a lot more than they currently do. I'd love to speak with them about that at some point in the future. Parks and recreation with detailed parks maps and facilities, allowing citizens to go and see what they have access to, around the city. We want to have up-to-date versions of things that they can go and view city facilities with. And citizen engagement is just a big thing. I'd love to see people using these maps. I'd love to see people using this information. And so that wraps up my presentation.
Just up front, I'll say that I love the direction that you're going. And Mark, I want you to hear it too. I love the direction that y'all are going. What you're trying to push out is making information so that fewer people have to call you to get it. Because y'all already don't have time to return all the phone calls and emails that you get. That's the reality of business in 2024. And putting stuff out there, I realize there's some things we can't put out there because it's a security risk, but stuff that's not, putting it out there where the developers, especially developers that really know what they're doing, can get the information, so then they can submit things correctly the first time, which then cuts back on re-reviews. It's putting stuff in place to where the people can be efficient and better utilize your offices without having to eat up so much of your time just simply doing re-review and requesting information. And I think that's wise investment of your time and your resources. So I'll publicly say that. And I also really enjoy the fact that you're pursuing some interns and getting to meet with the ECU group. They came through Goldsboro a few weeks ago, and at the very end of it, pulling all the seniors over and saying, all right, who here's a senior, who here's about to graduate? All right, every one of y'all, I need to talk to you. And those are subtle but very effective recruiting things that have to happen.
Absolutely.
So I'll stop there. Council, any comments or questions?
I was going to make comments, but you
Please.
you said everything I wanted to say.
Perfect.
That works.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
You're welcome.
Welcome.
All right, so with that, that concludes the new business from the work session. So as is tradition, we will roll into our consent agenda items, unless Laura cuts me an eye and says that I'm missing something. So we will begin with consent agenda item E, finance. Ms. Gwynn.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight, my first item is to amend the Capital Project Fund ordinance for the Street Improvements Capital Project Fund. The council established this fund back in 2018 when the city borrowed $4.5 million to make street improvements and street construction. At this time, engineering is finishing up on the 2020 street resurfacing project with Daniels, Inc., and there are funds in G1105 that have been generated from investment interest, which we can use to help offset the cost of the additional paving that's being done. There is additional revenue in the amount of $1,973.34 and some premiums from obligation bond premiums in the amount of $100.50. So this will help fund that additional amount that's needed for that 2020 street resurfacing. So this also is going to close this fund once all of the final payments have been made to the vendor and all sales tax reimbursements have been received. And that will bring the project total for G1105 to $5,050,596.09. Any questions?
Council, any comments or questions?
Okay.
Then we'll go ahead and move to item F.
Okay, so the next item is a grant project budget ordinance amendment for the miscellaneous grant project fund. This fund was established to handle the State Appropriations Act. It was initially started with the $50,000 that went to Parks and Recreation Fund. Then at the October 16th, 2023 meeting, Council authorized the amendment to the fund to add an additional $57,000 for street resurfacing and a sidewalk extension on Ash Street for $43,000. So this fund, these monies were used for part of that 2023 street resurfacing project. And so as part of the grant agreement, we are required by the grant agreement to allocate interest because we receive those monies in advance, which is unusual. We typically ask for reimbursement, but we receive them in advance. And of course, as you know, interest rates have been through the roof, so we've actually got quite a bit of interest income to allocate. So towards this street resurfacing project, we're going to allocate $836.74 to that in interest income. And then also, we also have some Parks and Recs funds that were not spent. So that's that $50,000. So we've got $1,067.28 of interest income to add to their supplies and equipment line item. So it's a small budget amendment, but we'll need this in order to complete that street resurfacing project. Any
Council, any
questions?
comments or questions on item F?
Okay.
The public has been very adamant that we aggressively pursue grant funding and try to work with our federal delegation and our state delegation to shake every bush and every tree to try to find funding to improve the city. And so we will be doing it, and so this is part of those processes.
It is.
Ms. Glenn, if you go ahead and start to item G.
Okay, so I have an operating budget amendment for fiscal '24, And I'll go through organization by organization, just let you know what's going on, because there are quite a few items in there. In the mayor and council budget, per council's directive at the council retreat, an appropriation is presented to pay for the new lobbyist Crossroads Strategies in partnership with the Friends of Seymour. The contract appropriation that I put in here was $50,000, and I'll be honest, when I was doing this, I was thinking about the whole 60, and we had 10,000 left over, which is why I put 50 in there. But then I realized after I had submitted it, it should have been half that amount. So really, we only needed 30. However, we do need to fund the consultant fee for a city manager search. So I feel comfortable leaving the 50 in there because the council does not have that money in its budget in order to pay for that search. So I just want to be upfront and let you know that was what this issue is. So I think it was actually a happy mistake in the sense that I don't have to come back with another budget amendment to have that appropriated. So it's all going into consultant fees anyway. So I think that it's appropriate that that amount is $50,000. In the city manager budget, I have an expenditure appropriation to fund the severance package for the former city manager in the amount of $115,366.87, and this will be funded with an appropriation of fund balance. In the Paramount Theater, the Paramount, as you're aware, had a major facade repair. The Paramount Theater Foundation has generously donated $9,125 towards the cost of the repair, and so those funds need to be appropriated so that we can pay those bills, and this will be funded with an appropriation of local grants and donations. In the Planning Department, at the February 12th meeting, Council authorized staff to enter into a demolition contract with AK Grading for 612 South John Street, which is the property that is beside Willowdale Cemetery. The amount of the contract was $79,500, and it is necessary to do this because the building is a danger and it needs to be demolished. This will be funded with an appropriation of fund balance. In engineering, as I've discussed in the previous two amendments, the engineering department has requested additional funds to finish the contract with Daniels, Inc. We've appropriated in the G1105 an amount of $2,073.84. In G1109, we've appropriated an amount of $836.74. The total amount requested was $18,779.84. There is $1,906.93 that is still in the line item appropriation, so we're reducing that amount to a net total of $13,962.33 for street resurfacing, and that will be funded with an appropriation of fund balance. In the police department, at the February 12th meeting, Council approved a pay increase plan for the police department. The initial amount of funding is really going to be provided through lapsed salaries, but there was a minor shortfall of $65,000, and so we need to appropriate that amount for salaries and benefits, and this will be appropriated with fund balance. And finally, in Parks and Recreation, the Parks and Recreation Department received a generous donation from the Rotary Club for $100 to be used for the special population activities. And so we are appropriating that amount for supplies, and that is funded with donation revenue. And I have provided you an analysis of fund balance appropriated in the general fund with the current and the proposed. And it's $4.6 million, which is kind of high, so we need to be very cautious about how we appropriate it from here until the end of the year. So, any questions?
I do have one.
Yes, sir.
Could you go back to the mayor and city council, 1011 general fund?
Mm-hmm.
Just restate that again.
Okay, so the appropriation for the Crossroads contract, there was some monies that are left over in that line item to pay. So we have to pay half of that amount, which should be $30,000. I put it in as 50 because I took 60,000 minus the 10 that the council does have available left in their budget. Okay, so that's where I came up with the 50. And I was rushing to try to get my agenda item done because it was already running a little bit late. Really, it should have been $30,000, okay? But what I'm saying is the council, there is the need to have the city manager search and to have that done professionally. So the additional $20,000 that's in there can be used. Now, if the council decides not to use it, then what happens to that money is it goes unspent and it will lapse back into the general fund balance.
And just as a point of clarification, there is not currently a contract in front of us for the city manager search. That'll be something that I'm pursuing aggressively for our next meeting. So the 20,000 is not because I've asked for 20,000.
Right.
It's because it just happened to be.
It just
the thing
happened to
that
be
fits.
there, yeah.
And we may or may not spend that.
Is there anything we can look at for, this contract for Crossroads Strategies? I mean, is there anything?
Yes, it is item Q.
Okay.
Yeah, that one is definitely one for discussion this evening as item Q.
Okay.
So, okay, cool.
So, I mean, if for some reason the council decides not to approve the contract, the money will not be spent. So we can lock that and commit the money and just say we're not going to spend it, so. Okay? Any other
Council, any
questions?
other questions on item G? All right,
Okay.
hearing none, thank you, Ms.
Thank
Gordon. Yeah, I probably could have moved that one to the end instead of, yeah. All right, item H.
Good evening, council, mayor and city council. How are y'all doing? I've got item H, which is the deed of easement between the city of Goldsboro and Royal Farms for the property located on West Grantham Street. We have 2 existing water lines in there. We got a 10-inch line and a 12-inch water main that is running across the property. I think the site plan was added as part of this agenda. So they're gonna remove the lines where they're gonna be building the property inside there. You can see the water mains where it crosses their property in the parking lot. So we're gonna redirect those lines. So we need an easement to have our line stay in there. So, I mean, this is what this is for. It's recommended to adopt it, resolution for the easement.
Council, any comments or questions on item H? And this one has come before council before, and the graphic and exactly
Yeah.
where the line will be, so.
Yeah.
Thank you. Let's move to item I.
All right, so item I is the 2023 resurfacing project, the final adjust and change order. We did, as Catherine mentioned earlier, we did go over the project by $18,779.84. There was 4 water leaks when we got in there. Our waters, so in certain parts of the city, our water lines are old. So when we get in there and we start milling these streets, all the vibration causes water leaks, old services. Our public works was able to fix them, but with that, all the dirt that come out of the hole was wet, so we couldn't reuse it. So we didn't have any select material on the project, so, with it being a resurfacing contract, so we just put asphalt back in. So that's where the overages came in on the asphalt. And then when we got some full depth repair in there. When we cut the trolley tracks out of the way, there was a void under there, so we had to fill that in as well and do some extra work there to keep that from falling back in. So that's where the overages came on that. So this is, it's recommended for city council to adopt the resolution authorizing the 18,000 and some change for the final adjust and change order.
Any comments
Just
or
as a
questions?
point, Mr. Mayor,
Please.
that is about a 6.5% cost increase overall. And for this day and time to have the amount of resurfacing we did for $300,000 and only come in over like that, that's actually pretty good. We did pretty good with this one.
Yeah.
With the results.
That's scary for the next ones that we want to do.
I agree that it's great, but just going forward, could we get other aggregate instead of
Yeah,
using
absolutely.
asphalt?
We can do that. I think in this case, I'll let Jonathan answer more. I think it was a little bit unanticipated, but we can put a contingency in place and kind of work in that way.
Yeah, on the full depth repair, you can do stone or you can do binder. Now, most of the time when you're dealing with asphalt companies, they're going to use binder because they're going to get it from the same place, the same asphalt plant that they're getting their binder from the same place they're getting their asphalt from. It's just easier for them to get binder, and it just holds up the same as stone does over time. So that's why they use binder. Our detail says either or. They can use stone or binder. So that's typically why asphalt companies go with binder.
Is there any cost difference?
No,
All right, any other comments or questions on item I?
All right, appreciate it.
Hearing none. Thank you, sir. We'll move to item J, building out our agenda for next month.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight is annexation petition for the Benjamin Carl Price properties, which is located on the corner of South US 117 Highway and US 13 Highway. It's a voluntary contiguous annexation. The City Council at their meeting on February 12th, 2024, requested the city clerk to examine the subject property voluntary non-contiguous annexation petition for sufficiency. And on February 26, 2024, the city clerk completed the examination and determined that the petition is sufficient. The sufficiency indicates the proposed area for the annexation meets the standards for non-continuous annexation as specified by GS 160A 58-1. And in pursuit of GS 160A 58.2, council is now requested to fix the date for public hearing on the annexation. And staff, if council so chooses, staff is prepared to go to public hearing on April 1, 2024.
Any comments or questions from council on item J? Hearing none. All right. Thank you. All right, item K. Chief.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Item K on the consent agenda is the 45th Annual Greater Goldsboro Road Run temporary street closing. An application was received from the Sunrise Kiwanis of Goldsboro requesting permission to hold their 45th Annual Greater Goldsboro Road Run on Saturday, April 20th, 2024 from 9 a.m. until 11 a.m. The race is scheduled to begin and end on Center Street near Spruce Street. The event runs through downtown and residential areas of Goldsboro to include Center Street, Walnut Street, Jefferson Street, and Mulberry Street. The police, fire, public works, and downtown Goldsboro officers have been notified of this request. The race has 3 routes that we'll be using for the 10K, the 5K, and the 1 mile run. All 3 routes will start and finish in the same area and will have staggered start times. The time requested for the closing is from 7 a.m. until 11:30 a.m. to allow for setup, the event, and dismantle. Staff recommends approval of this request, subject to the following conditions. All intersections remain open for the police department traffic control. 14-foot fire lane is maintained in the center of the street to provide access for fire and emergency vehicles. All activities, changes in plans, etc. will be coordinated with the police department. The police, fire, public works, and downtown Goldsboro officers are to be involved in the logistical aspects of this event. A recommendation, it is recommended that the council approve the street closing of sections of Center Street, Pine Street, Spruce Street, Chestnut Street, Walnut Street, and Mulberry Street for the 45th Annual Greater Goldsboro Road Run event, 7 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. on Saturday, April 20th of 2024. Any questions?
Any comments or questions from council on item K?
I have a comment, and I'm 100% okay with the street closure. That includes all of Center Street.
Yes.
Okay, so then I would like to make a recommendation that we lift the 2-hour parking that day, because those are the 2, Center Street has the 2 public parkings for all the businesses down on Center Street, so there's nowhere for their customers to park, there's nowhere for their employees to park, there's no handicap spots available, so I would like to see the warning tickets lifted completely for that Saturday, because people will have to fend for themselves for parking, for breakfast, for whatever, at these businesses.
Council, any comments or concerns on lifting the, what's the right way to do that, Chief? Is it, obviously by act of council, we could say this is a non-enforcement day, or however, but you're going to need.
I don't know if there's a right way right now because we're not even active on writing the real parking tickets. It's just the warning. So I don't know if that's just, hey, Chief, don't do warnings on this day. I think once we move into the actual enforcement of the 2-hour parking, then I don't know if the attorney could probably answer that better than I could. What is the correct procedure?
Because that takes away all the public parking on that street.
On Center Street.
For breakfast, for businesses, for anybody.
Right.
I think,
Good, Councilman.
I think that the parking is going to be addressed again at our next meeting. Is that correct? Because this extension will expire.
Well, we're gonna have to. We're gonna have
So-
to. I hadn't thought about exactly the next agenda
Yeah,
yet, but you're
so-
absolutely right. It's gonna have to be because we extended through the end of March.
That's correct.
Yeah, so that may we may solve that problem at our next meeting.
Mr. Livingston, now is not exactly the right time to break into this. Under the city manager's report, when you report later this evening, would you be willing to discuss any conversations, if there have been any, with the parking commission? There was a traffic commission that we kind of, just if there has been any, because you're absolutely right, we will need to have a conversation March 18th.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, please go
So
ahead.
then if we can address, if it becomes necessary, we can address the rest of this then, if that discussion doesn't solve this problem.
What's the date?
It's Saturday.
April 20th.
April the 20th is a Saturday.
So that one would be, as is currently the directive of council, the moratorium, if you will, on parking or on parking tickets ends at the end of March. So this would be in April.
Correct.
So if it were to remain as currently is, what would be the right way to get it documented that council is saying this particular Saturday, things will not be enforced? You're gonna need something in writing.
Do that next meeting,
Okay.
when you address the parking again. At this point, if it's been on the consent agenda, it's the approval or not approval, just
Right.
closing the street. So that being a totally separate issue that's not on the agenda, not on the approved agenda earlier, of course, you can always amend and add
Sure.
what you want to. But I think the proper procedure is to have it on the March 18th agenda for discussion, and that can be part of the discussion, is when the council's going to suspend,
Right.
and what policy maybe there is about suspending enforcement. You're going to need to do that on a consistent basis if you're going to do it.
Right.
So you're going to have a policy that talks about that, when the city's going to do it, and what the basis is to do it, so people can expect and understand that.
Thank you.
Okay?
So for the purposes of this conversation right now, we need to address item K as presented, but acknowledging that at the March 18th meeting, we're going to have some business around some consistent guidance on how to handle traffic enforcement on those days.
Correct.
Okay. So relating specifically to the Greater Goldsboro Road Run, are there any other comments or questions from council on the agenda item as presented? Hearing none? All right, thank you, Chief.
Thanks.
Items L and M were previously removed. We'll move to item N.
I would like to do N and O at the same time, if that's okay, Mayor?
Who's good?
Okay. You may remember at the February 12th meeting, the economic development folks came in, discussed the status of the Mount Olive project and the expansion of the water and sewer lines, the necessity for those water lines to cross these two particular properties. These two particular properties, there needs to be an easement. After the appraisals were done, the appraiser determined that taking the easement across their properties would effectually just sort of render them not usable anyway. There's no residences on these properties. They're down in the area off of the, I believe it's called Washington Heights area. So there's not a residence involved anyway. The tax value on one of the properties is $2,800. The tax value on the other is $2,500. The appraiser determined $3,500 would be fair market value for each one of those. And so these resolutions that are before you today are so the city can condemn those two pieces of property. There's been attempts by the Economic Development Office and their representatives to try to reach an agreement with the property owners, but the problem is they're both heir properties. Heir properties involve multiple heirs that are located different, not only in Goldsboro, but different areas of the country. There's also some possibility of unknown heirs. So the best procedure is going to be to file the condemnation action. There will be a representative appointed to represent the unknown heirs. The monies will be paid into the clerk's office when the complaint is filed. And at that point, once that money is paid in, once service is completed upon the parties involved and the unknown heirs, at that point, actually, the work can be done across the properties. So that'll be taking place once this is approved tonight. Those notices will be sent out this week. You have to send a notice of condemnation first, all known heirs, all known property owners. And then at least 30 days after that is when the lawsuit can be filed. And at that point in time, once that's filed, the service is done, then technically and essentially the city can then go ahead and start construction across those properties. The money will be deposited with the clerk's office, and the only issue to be determined is the issue of just compensation and who gets it. So those resolutions are before you today to be passed, and that way allowing me to go ahead and complete the actions to contend the two separate properties. You have a map in your folder today. You were presented that map at the last meeting on February the 12th that showed the two pieces of properties and the locations. And if you'll take a look at that briefly and sort of hold it in a landscape fashion, you'll see the property on the right is the Glen property. It goes more of a north-south direction on the map. And the Jack's property is the one on the left. They're both highlighted in yellow. And those properties, the Jack's property is the one on the left. That's the two properties that are at issue. And you'll see the red line, which is where the folks from the Economic Development Office came in and showed you where the line has to go, and it has to cross these two pieces of properties. The only two that need to have some sort of acquisition done to allow this to occur. Any questions for me on that?
Council, any comments or questions on item N or O? Hearing none. Thank you. So now we'll move to item P. Ms. Getz, if you'll start, and then I'm happy to fill in any.
Revising the policy regarding the use of city-owned property for special events. The policy regarding the use of city-owned property for special events was discussed with council at the May 1, 2023 meeting and was adopted by resolution. The use of city-owned parks and recreation property, the Goldsboro Event Center, Goldsboro Municipal Golf Course, and the Paramount Theater is not regulated by this policy. Updates to the policy are needed to include the golf course as city-owned property not covered by the policy. It's also recommended that the application fee for a special event be increased to $500 and the application for a street closing be increased to $600 to align with the rates of using the hub and/or Freedom Field. The intent of this change is to use the hub and/or Freedom Field for events instead of closing streets in the city of Goldsboro based on feedback from council. Application fees may be waived by the city manager for events sponsored by the city of Goldsboro, and all other application fees requested to be waived must go before council. All requests for sponsorships must be approved by a majority vote of city council. It's recommended that council adopt the attached resolution approving these changes to the policy regarding the use of city-owned property for special events.
All right, council, I'm going to add to that. This one, in trying to collect feedback from our past meetings, there were a few different issues with the policy that I felt we all kind of touched on. One is that there was a financial incentive to hold an event on a street as opposed to at one of the designated venues. Then we started getting into the policies and realized that we're going to have to do more work on having the policy clearly separate out Parks and Rec property, Goldsboro Event Center, golf course, Paramount Theater, all of which are things that are city-owned property but not regulated by this specific policy. And of course, we want it to be something that everyone can point to the policy. So we're going to do something that clearly shows where to go to find the policy for the event center, for the golf course, so forth and so on. So the adjustment proposed today is kind of step one of this, which is to get the financial piece resolved, if it is the will of council to do so. And in doing so, we noted that the municipal golf course needed to be added, and there needed to be a clear reference to the hub rental request form that is there as well. If you're probably wondering, so if it's not Parks and Rec property, it's not Event Center, it's not Municipal Golf Course, it's not Paramount Theater, what else would be regulated by this property? Well, any other city-owned property, any other public spaces where that someone wants to have a reserved event as opposed to just a general free speech kind of gathering sort of thing. So this is step one, based on what I think I was hearing from council. There will be more as schedules permit over the coming weeks, trying to just kind of, I'm calling it clean up, but I really mean modernize some of our policies that Ms. Getz has been willing to sort of humor me on. So Any comments or questions from council? And I do want to point out to Councilmember White's point from earlier, current applicants, if we approve this, current applicants should still be assessed using the rule that was in place at the time of their application. I feel strongly about that. So any comments, questions? I'm sure there will be. This is a complicated one, even though the changes on their face are simple.
I'm in agreement with the forcing mechanism to check to see if the hub is open first. I think my apprehension is charging them $600 to close the street.
Right now, the $600 fee, again, mirrors what there is for the hub. And it's still less than the event center, it's still less than a lot of other things. Would it be, and I'm fine if this one we decide to kind of table and continue to massage, and that's not going to upset me either, but I wanted to get the ball rolling. Do we need to look at an adjustment that is nonprofit, city-sponsored event at a different price, which again, it can already be waived if it is a city-sponsored event? What are your thoughts?
I'm good with the city-sponsored events, because it's just like charging yourself.
Right.
Right? But, and I know some people feel differently, but I have a problem with distinguishing between nonprofit and for-profit.
Fair. Fair. So as it's written, in drafting this, there's not currently a distinction between the two.
Right. So if I had my druthers, I would keep it that way, not to distinguish between the two.
Right.
And just have one standard. But and maybe it's just me, but I just have a problem with charging $600 for closing the street.
How much do we charge for the hub again?
5 and 6. This is mirroring.
I think that they should be shown the hub as the first option for them, and here's the reason why. Every time we close down a street, we are asking people to come downtown to shop. We are taking away revenue and resources from our businesses downtown, and we're giving people an opportunity to shut down the streets, and their shoppers can't even get to their doors.
And
so-
this weekend, the streets were closed, and I counted the parking lots. And they're about, I'll say approximately, because I know somebody would probably go and count them, because I was, and it was raining, but 25 to 30 parking places that were taken up by the street closures. So that's 25, you're gonna shut them down at 3, and you have Breeze's and some other places that are gonna stay open until 6. So that means that there's 25 parking spaces that could be used on a Friday, and we're talking about Friday. And Friday nights, people like to go out and eat. They like to shop, and there are also restaurants on John Street. There are some, I don't know the name of them. What is it?
Well, Breeze's has moved to John Street.
Not Breeze's, but over here, there's
I got Breweworks over there.
there's some over there. So I don't know if they're allowed to use First Citizens parking lot or not, but those are parking lots that we can't use when there is a space. I don't know how much, I think it's St. Stephen's, but there is there is a lot over there that is really big that maybe we could take a look at, or the people that want to close down the street could take a look at that, and then we wouldn't be closing. I'm trying to look at a solution.
This specific shift in this policy, again, as kind of step one, was to try and remove the financial benefit for closing a street as opposed to renting a space. Because as currently written, you could close down the street for $100. You could rent a space for $500.
I'd
What do you
close down the
think?
street.
All right.
I'd
And so
sure
that's,
agree.
so this was step one,
That's
trying
what I
to
would do.
resolve that financial incentive.
But this space between Whirls and it used to be the flooring place, right out there on Center Street, that is a great area. And if they could take a look at utilizing that and maybe give it a small donation to the church for using that area, then we wouldn't have to close down the streets.
So I just want to throw this out there too, because I'm hearing a lot of negative consequences, but I look at it differently. There are some events that shut down our streets that bring people downtown that would probably otherwise never come downtown, offering them an opportunity to walk into some of these shops that they probably never would walk into otherwise. So let's look at it like that too, and how we're supporting these small business owners, and particularly going back to this small batch craft event that I think is the thing that's kind of changing everything. Those business owners were talked to, they were in support of, unfortunately it rained, but those business owners were still out there, they were still sharing their passions, people were still downtown, visiting downtown, so it's a hard sell for me to say that a street closure is going to significantly impact some of our businesses downtown, when we can look at it from a standpoint that say, you know what, I could be down here looking at some jewelry, but now I'm hungry. So let me walk into the Laughing Hour. Now I'm hungry, let me check out Ice Storm, or let me go get some ice cream or one of them really good cookies that's at Cry Freedom. So those are opportunities that I want us to look at too, instead of just looking at it from a negative
Yeah,
point of
but then
view.
those opportunities aren't there if you shut down the streets. On the other hand, and you got food vendors all up and down the streets, and they can't eat at Breeze's, they can't eat at Up North Pizza, they can't eat at the new Smash Burger place coming in and the new restaurants coming in. We, again, there's pros and cons. We're taking revenue away too from the businesses when you shut down the streets and the people cannot get to their shopping spaces to shop. We're not talking about Freedom Fest, we're not talking about the larger festivals, we're talking about just anybody being able to say, I'll pay $100 and have the street shut down. And unfortunately, we did not have the proper policies and procedures in place so that it prevented anybody from just saying, here's $100, I want to shut down Center Street.
Mr. Webb?
I just was going to make a comment that I'm obviously, because we didn't ask to remove it, but I'm in favor of the update to the policy, and I realize it's a step in the right direction, and it's just a step in the process that the policy is going to continue to be worked on. So I'm in favor of the policy as and the update to it as presented on the agenda, the consent agenda for approval.
Well, ultimately, I want to see an incentive for holding more affairs, for holding more events, just like the small batch craft event. You know, I want to see that event happen. That's not, you know, frankly, as I'm looking through different policies, I kind of saw that and went, well, that's an odd thing to have a financial incentive to do this instead of that. I also am, you know, hearing all the concerns about parking. And so this, again, this is just step one. I'm going to continue to work with council and hear feedback, and what can we do to push something into a parking lot, or what can we do to push something towards the hub, or towards a park, or towards, you know, any other number of things. So again, this is kind of a step one, just removing the financial incentive to do a street as opposed to a venue, unless it is an event that is sponsored by the city, and council as a whole holds the keys to it being a sponsored event by the city. Any other comments or questions about the policy as presented? Or specifically the consent agenda item P? Okay. All right, item Q. Mr. Livingston, or do you want me to do this one? It's up to you.
I'll take it, Mayor,
Okay.
if you want to fill in.
Sure.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. As you may recall, this was an item that came up before at the retreat. Essentially, it's a dual agreement between the city and the county to work with a consulting firm, I guess they're Crossroads Strategies, to advocate on behalf of the city of Goldsboro in Washington to help us with what our agenda in Washington, for lack of a better term. It's a several-year agreement, but for right now, they're just talking about a shared amount of $30,000 between the city and then $30,000 for the county to work in Washington on behalf of our federal objectives. Mayor, if you want to.
Thank you. So this one, and I appreciate council at the retreat being willing to hear this one, and then, of course, having follow-up conversations after the fact. This, what's in front of you right now, is an agreement that gets us to the end of the current fiscal year. There is certainly the expectation on the part of Crossroads that we would be entering into another agreement next fiscal year, but we've got to get to that. This is I believe, is the first step. When we learned that we were losing a squadron at Seymour Johnson, Friends of Seymour didn't know. Our lobbyists that we had on retainer didn't know. Our congressional delegation didn't know. Our state delegation didn't know. We all found out about that in a backwards way. And Seymour Johnson and what it means to this city, county, and region and the future of that base is pretty critical. And so what I presented to council at the retreat and what I'm formally presenting to council now is a negotiated agreement where that Friends of Seymour will have a sort of day-to-day role, but in the city of Goldsboro paying Crossroads directly. We wouldn't be necessarily, we would not be putting any money through Friends of Seymour to get there. We would be writing our check directly. I believe the county will be doing its money through Friends of Seymour. That's, I'm not exactly, that's not final yet. But we would be doing ours directly to Crossroads Strategies. And their efforts would be specifically around our agenda towards protecting the ground and the facility that is Seymour Johnson Air Force Base. We all know that the F-15 is an aging airframe, but it's an amazing airframe. So we want to do what we can to protect that airframe for as long as it has viability, strategic viability within the Air Force. But we also, and this is where we need help from our politicos and where we need help from a seasoned lobbyist and consultant, we need to make sure that we're in line for the next mission. Whatever the next mission, 5 years, 10 years, 25 years down the road is, to make sure that Seymour Johnson continues to be a vital asset in the portfolio of the Air Force is key. And I feel like right now is the pretty pivotal time, and I'm not alone in this, feeling that right now is a pretty pivotal time to make sure that we are putting the right assets downrange in DC to make sure that we have a seat at that table. So this is an agreement, so you know the total agreement is $15,000 per month. We would be responsible for half of that, county would be responsible for half of that, and we would be engaged in trying to make sure that we have a DC consultant. Comments, questions from council? There's some others around this table that have a lot of experience with military, and I hope that you'll feel free to speak your mind for or against.
Mr. Mayor, I do have some concerns with this agreement.
Yes, sir.
And the reason being is I've looked at the Constitution for Friends of Seymour, and we are allotted one spot on the board, which is an ex officio, which means a non-voting party.
Yes, sir.
So we don't have a voice for the bucks that we're spending from the citizens. We won't have an active participation part. Also, in speaking with the secretary today, they're actively trying to get this delayed.
Right.
Our actual congressmen and representatives up there in DC right now are actively trying to get this delayed because of a technicality on some things that Senator Tillis wrote into the actual budget. So with that being said, I just don't understand what the bang for the buck would be for getting them for the next 4 months until we can get to the table with Francis Seymour to actually, because what Senator Tillis and his office is doing now is exactly what they would do, Crossroads would do.
Right.
So I don't understand the futility in paying $7,500 now until we get an agreement with Francis Seymour what the deliverables are,
Right.
with what we pay them on a monthly basis.
Well, this one does not, again, this does not pay Francis Seymour. And I know that I'm just making that clarifying point, because this one does not pay Francis Seymour. This one pays Crossroads directly, and we would have, it is certainly my expectation that we would have a seat at the table in conversations with Crossroads. That lobbying strategy would be something that this council has a direct input in. But to your point, and that is part of why we're doing this, we're not doing an 18-month agreement. We're doing this to get started because, as has been voiced to me, we have been able to get Senator Tillis, who's been fantastic in this, to get his office engaged, as well as Don Davis, as well as several others that have really come to bat for us. But as has been expressed to me, the goal is to find out who else can we get on our side, and can we start planning for the future in addition to the delay. But you have a lot of experience in this, sir, and I value.
I just think in the next 4 months is what we're asking for right now. The next 4 months is what we're trying to fund, the $7,500
Each month.
each month.
Right.
Right. Going for the next 4 months until we enter into a long-term agreement.
Right.
I just think that because we've already reached out to our counterparts in DC, and they're doing exactly what Crossroads Strategies will do, right? They duplicate the efforts for $7,500, which Senator Tillis is already aware of it, and he's working it diligently, him and his staff. So I just don't see what the bang for the buck would be to duplicate the efforts. Now, going forward, do I see the bang for the buck? Yes, if we have proper, documentation on the deliverables on what the city is paying and asking for from Crossroads. I do agree with that, right? But right now, for the next 4 months, spending $7,500 for something that's already in motion, I can't see that.
I just want to make sure that other folks are not able to get into some of our representatives' ears and turn them by mistake. And it's almost I hate to use this phrasing, but I'm kind of viewing this as a mixture of an insurance policy and a test account to see how we're going to be able to make this thing work. I think it's going to work. This group has a phenomenal reputation, and I would like to see us build a stronger rapport with our consultants in DC, with the county, and with Friends of Seymour or whoever our designated partner is. I want to see us have more influence in those conversations and in those negotiations. I very much agree with you. But I'd like to see if we can start getting the framework together. And so that's why I'm bringing this one forward and asking for council support in it. But every one of your concerns I echo. I just would like to try to resolve them with a contract and with an account in hand as opposed to without one.
So if we do move forward, Mr. Mayor, then let's get an agreement then, that these are the deliverables.
Yes, sir.
All right, if we're gonna move forward with $7,500, then let's have something written, no more handshake deals. Let's do something written that says, these are the deliverables to the city of Goldsboro. Minutes, what you talked about, the whole nine, until those 4 months are up. Now, when the 4 months are up, I will wish that it was written in the thing that we will have a seat at the table and be a voting party on what goes down and what we ask for when we do send a delegate up to DC to arbitrate on our behalf.
Yeah, I agree with you that the document presented is a lot thinner and less descriptive than most contracts that you would expect of this, at this price point for sure. And certainly for next year, I would expect a stronger statement of work. I very much agree. Any other conversation around item
Q.
Q? Hearing none. Councilman White, thank you, sir. I appreciate your guidance on this, and I look forward to having you by my side as we set up what it is we want to see going forward. That concludes the consent agenda. We are only at 6:15. Is there, Mr. Lawrence, is there any closed session items, or Mr. Lewis, are there any closed session items to come before council? None. Seeing none, is there anything else off of the agenda that can be resolved during the work session? Madam Clerk, Mr. Livingston? Seeing nothing? All right, we will stand in recess until the regular meeting at 7 o'clock in council chambers. Call this thing back to order. Welcome to the 7 o'clock regular meeting of the Goldsboro City Council on March 4th. I'm glad everyone is here. Those watching us online, I'm glad you're able to join in, and look forward to reading those comments later as well. So with that, let's begin with invocation. Archbishop Slater, if you would please lead us.
Good evening. Good evening. Mayor Pro Tem, City Council, staff. Let's pray. Our Father, we thank you for this moment that we can come together. Father, we need your help tonight. We need your decision making. We need your assistance in every part. Father, we the community have come together and chosen these few to come and speak for us and help us proceed in life in this city. Father, we thank you for the city of Goldsboro. Thank you for shining on us, Lord. There's many other cities that are going through worse things than us. Lord, give us the strength to be even better next day and the next day. And we thank you tonight, and we're grateful. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, sir. And then remain standing and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. And then we'll be seated. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, Ms. Getz, if you would please do a roll call.
Mayor Gaylor?
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Matthews?
Present.
Councilwoman Jones?
Here.
Councilman Boyette?
Present.
Councilwoman Taylor?
Present.
Councilwoman Weeks?
Present.
Councilman White?
Present.
Thank you, all present and accounted for. We'll move to approval of minutes. We have item A1, minutes of the special meeting of January 18th, 2024. Ms. Getz, do you need individualized votes on each of these, or can we do them as a bulk? All right. So, council, you've had the minutes of the special meeting of January 18th, 2024, the minutes of the work session and regular meeting of January 22nd, 2024, and minutes of the recessed meeting of January 23rd, 2024, presented with an opportunity to review. Do we have any edits to be presented to council? Hearing none, do we have a motion to approve the 4 sets of minutes if you include the work session as presented?
I make a motion that we approve the minutes.
All right, motion has been made. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve the slate of minutes as presented. All in favor, or is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor, please raise your hand. All opposed, same sign. Seeing none, motion passes. Thank you, everybody. We will move directly into presentations. This is an exciting one. Councilmember White, I owe you a great amount of gratitude for bringing this up. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll begin with a recognition proclamation of the Goldsboro High School Lady Cougars. If you would, yeah. Go ahead. Ladies, families, coach, if y'all like to come forward, and then Councilmember White, you'll read the proclamation. Y'all come on up here. Y'all come on up here. So you can face the crowd, because that is a better camera. So you face the crowd, and then any families that are in the crowds, obviously grab some pictures. I know there's going to be a bunch of them. Post them. Yeah, exactly. Post them all over social media. We'll get some more pictures after this if there's specific folks in the pictures. Councilmember White, the floor is yours.
Goldsboro High School Lady Cougars 2024 basketball team proclamation. Whereas Goldsboro High School and its affiliate athletic teams are cornerstones in the culture and history of Goldsboro, and whereas this has been a phenomenal season for the Goldsboro Lady Cougars, also known as the Cougarettes, have completed their season with a conference record of 9-2, an overall record of 23-3, and whereas this record placed them in second in their conference and took them to the second round of the North Carolina High School State Playoffs. And whereas the team was led by its leading scorer, Isaiah Boyer, 406 points. Isaiah, I'm sorry. Its leading offensive rebounder, sophomore Isaiah Boyer, 112 rebounds. Its leading defensive rebounder, Junior Desmaya Kroon, with 150. Its assist leader, Senior Nashia Williams, 86 assists. Its steals leader, Senior Nashia Williams, 95 steals. And its block leader, Sophomore Isaiah Boyers, 62. And whereas success on the court was mirrored in the classroom, as evident by the ladies being included on the school's honor rolls, principal list, with multiple ladies having GPAs over 4.0. Yeah. To a cumulative team GPA of 3.93. And whereas the ladies are also leaders of clubs and organizations at Goldsboro High School, such as the Fellowship of Christian Athletes, Student Government Association, as well as actively participating in school blood drives. Now, therefore, be it resolved that Goldsboro City Council does hereby proclaim March 4th, 2024 as a day of congratulation and recognition for the Goldsboro High School Lady Cougars 2024 basketball team, and the manner by which this lady exemplified the high standards expected of student athletes as they balance the demands of sports, academics, and leadership in their communities. Cougar pride. It is witnessed whereof I have hereunto set my hand and affixed the seal of the city of Goldsboro, North Carolina, this day, 4th day of March, 2024. Charles Gaylord, Mayor.
All right. So, ladies, congratulations. Thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for showing the city exactly what it means to be a student athlete, to be a member of a community. We're here to celebrate you. Thank you so much. Yep. Don't go anywhere. We're in the right color suit and tie, nation. All right. We're gonna let them lead the show of which pictures they want and in what order, but I want y'all to come on down here and get one as well. All right, Latoya got us. How do you want it? All right, I'll put this thing down. Council, how about just kind of coming around, a couple on this side, a couple on this side? I don't know if I say over here somewhere.
Can't get up that easy.
There you go. Is that too wide?
I brought a basket.
I blew it on the first one.
You recovered real well, though.
Well, thank
Good.
you.
And y'all are welcome to stay and watch the rest of the meeting. You're also welcome to slide out, whichever y'all prefer. But obviously, we'd love to have you. But also understand, y'all see.
Yeah, you gave him the hall pass there, Mayor.
Yeah. And y'all see why I went ahead and said that now, right? Yeah.
All right, our next agenda item under presentations is item C. It is a presentation from Hope Restorations.
Hello, good evening. You're gonna have to excuse my nerves. This is my first presentation. So, good evening. My name is Bailey Steps. I am the administrative manager at Hope Restorations. Just want to give you a short backstory about myself before we begin. I started Hope Restorations when I was 3 months clean as a program participant, and it has been one of the key factors to keep me clean these past 5 years. So I'm very honored to be up here to share with y'all the mission of Hope Restorations. Thank you. Oh, okay. Let's see here. Okay. So the mission of Hope Restorations is a nonprofit that aids adults in recovery from addiction and or incarceration. We provide job skill training, transitional housing, and other reentry supports. We do this by acquiring deteriorating houses from our local communities and equipping our program participants with the knowledge and skills to restore the homes up to modern standards. With all these initiatives, it provides safe, affordable, energy-efficient homes that we rent to low-income families. And that's a beautiful picture of the men and women in our program for our Christmas lunch. Our House of Hope for Women is located in Kinston at our main office. I love their smiling faces up there. It is, I already said it's located in Kinston. It can house up to 20 women at a time, and it is ran on a phase format. The first phase, of course, is the tough phase. It's the very strict and structured phase. A program participant referred to it as the protective phase one time because we're literally protecting them from the outside world, the people, places, and things that got them into trouble. And as they progress through each phase, we are constantly working on them about what's next. Is it next step supportive housing or more permanent housing? Do they want to go back to school? Do they have any interest in going back to school? If they do, we will connect them with LCC or the community college, or and constantly working on them with what are they going to do about transportation, because transportation is a huge issue with the individuals we work with. We get referrals from a ton of different agencies, but Wayne County's S&M program and COM, and we're partnered with the 8th District Judicial Court. They have their family and their new adult accountability recovery court. And it has definitely produced really good results to an alternative to incarceration for low offenders. So our women do have a workforce development program. Restored Hope Boutique is located in Kinston as of right now on Queen Street. This is a picture of Miss Lindsay. She was a great success in our program. She graduated and she's now the assistant manager of our boutique. And we're very honored to say that the whole boutique is participant ran. The store manager is also a graduate from our program. And it can employ up to four girls at a time right now until we get to our bigger, better location. And they are learning transferable skills, customer service, inventory management, website development, those kinds of things. But they're also being mentored in those important soft skills, like how to show up to work on time, how to talk to people respectively. And also being the biggest part of our program, I would like to say, is the peer accountability piece. It's very, very common to walk into the boutique on a slow day and on the work crew and hear the participants talking recovery. And it's such an important aspect of our program. But that's really all I have to say. I'm going to turn it over to Chris Jenkins, Executive Director of Hope Restorations.
Good evening. We are honored to be here, and I just have to say I'm absolutely inspired by that ball team.
Yeah.
That an average GPA of 3.92, that's really impressive. And I'm impressed with Bailey. Just to let everybody know, she has been tapped on the shoulder to develop herself professionally and educationally so that she's the one who takes my place when I retire, hopefully in about 8 or 9 years. She's already told you about our mission. We began in 2015, and we had gone through the process as a team building skill development to develop this presentation as a team for tonight, and 2 of our team members ended up being too sick to be here today. And I'm more accustomed to doing these kind of presentations, so I'm not following notes or anything like that. But we began, and we had a real advantage in Kinston, North Carolina, where we began, because both the VP of Construction Programming, Tim Chase, who's one of the SIC members, and myself are native of Lenoir County, so we knew lots of people. Our idea was really unique. There was nobody around that we could call and ask for help about how to solve problems when we hit certain roadblocks in our organizational development. But our primary funders recognized the uniqueness of our methodology, of our idea, and kind of gave us the mandate of just figure it out, refine the model, because once it's ready, we're going to replicate it all across this state and possibly beyond. Wayne County is part of that replication process. And we began earnestly prior to the pandemic breaking out. The city government and the county government came together to donate this property on Nile Street, which, by the way, we're having an open house tomorrow, and we'd love for any of you that are available, or any of the audience here in present or online, to show up for that tomorrow morning.
Do you mind listing the address real quick for that?
Is it 807 Nile Street? And it's at 10 a.m., right?
10 to 12, yeah. There will be donuts.
And so we're doing that. The idea, the concept behind what we're trying to do is for the counties that are within a reasonable commute distance, where it makes sense that we could use the same set of tools, the same set of trucks, the same administrative structure, and enjoy some economies of scale. So essentially, those counties that are adjacent to Lenoir, that we're trying to establish operations in those communities so that the people in these communities can benefit from our methodology and what we've learned without having to replicate that expensive administrative structure. The counties beyond that reasonable distance, we're offering ourselves as basically free consultants to help any organization or any community, municipality that wants to implement what we've learned, to just kind of help them go through the process of getting started up. Obviously, there'll have to be adaptations from one community to the next. No 2 communities are exactly the same. But we share the similar desire to help our people flourish, and some of the same problems like shortages of affordable housing for lower income families and those kind of things. So the pictures that you've seen of the women's house, that was actually a men's halfway house for alcoholics. When I was a child, living just a few blocks from that place back in the 70s. And when we first started, they were one of our biggest partners. We're a highly collaborative organization. One of our corporate values is we will not replicate a service that our participants need if that service is already available elsewhere in the community. We just believe replicating services is poor stewardship of the resources. So we try to do what we do best and trust that the other people involved are going to do what they do best, and we all do better when we help each other succeed. Which puts us highly involved in all the local reentry councils. I'm trying to get somebody to take over as the chairman of the Lenoir County Reentry Council, but I hadn't been able to do it yet. And I'm on the Wayne County Reentry Council, and I'm the secretary of the Pitt County Reentry Council. And so we're highly collaborative in that. But that board of directors that owned that was called the Flynn Home, decided to close up and gave us that facility, and that's what got us involved in transitional housing. That's not part of our original mission. So we made progress on the Nile Street property, and it was severely delayed because of all the supply chain issues, the the pandemic disrupted the number of people applying to be in our program. And so much of the work we did was not by having people in Wayne County in our program. Instead, it was us carving out time from the projects we were already committed to in Lenore County and busing our crews over here to work on it. And then trying to identify subcontractors and stuff to do some of the work that we're not licensed to do. Like we don't do our own plumbing, heating, and air conditioning, and electrical. That requires specific licenses for that. So we have a high success rate compared to other models in terms of what percentage of our program participants actually succeed. And we allow our program participants to define for themselves what success is. Right? It's different depending on what their situation is and what their background is and what their long-term ambitions are. So all that said, I think the main thing that I wanted to do tonight was just to make sure you had an overview of who we are and know that we want to come and be a part of people's success and help solve some of the problems that may exist here in this community in a highly collaborative way. And y'all just know that we're, in the words of the consultant we have been provided by the Duke Endowment, we're an organization that is learning how to fly an airplane while we build it. Right? And so expect some mistakes, but when we make mistakes, we're trying to fall forward, and we're doing it with the best of intentions. So with that said, if you have any questions, we'd be happy to try to answer them.
I'm just going to ask one real quick. Can you talk a little bit about the Nile Street property and the condition it was in when you got it and what you've been able to do with it?
Well, like most of the properties we obtain, little tidbit of our history. When we first got started, we took some of the grant money and bought 8 houses in Kinston. With our board of directors, kind of felt like if we were going to ultimately be in the rental management side of things, that we needed to go ahead and get our feet wet learning how to manage rentals. So we bought 8 that needed some minor repairs, but were still already in livable condition. But since that purchase, we haven't bought a house. And so if you imagine 3-bedroom, 1-bath house on the average 1/4 acre parcel of land inside the city limits, to be in such foul condition that they're being donated to us. How bad that is varies from property to property. There's some that you can't walk in across the floor the day that we acquire them because you'll fall through the floor. Others are, you look at them and think, well, maybe this one's not going to be too bad, until you start picking and scratching and realizing the rot's got other stuff hiding it. But we generally, on average, that has shot up a little bit now because of the inflation and other issues. But on average, we're spending $50,000 to $55,000 per renovation to strip it down to bare bones so we can see what it really needs. And then we put it back together with little or no emphasis on cosmetics. By the time we've done that much work, it definitely looks better, but we don't do cosmetic work for the sake of cosmetic work. Our focus is on, let's get some more insulation in it. Let's make sure the windows are tight and functioning properly. Let's make sure that the plumbing, electrical, and HVAC are modern. And so then when we are finished with it, one of our hopes has always been that this could be a mechanism through which we could help socioeconomically disadvantaged people become first-time home buyers and start the process of building multi-generational wealth. That's a piece of the puzzle we hadn't figured out yet. It hadn't worked in Kinston for some reason, despite our incredible offer to sell them a house in that good a condition so cheap. But what we are able to do is we have another one of our corporate values is that when we put them out there for rent, we are determined to keep it at least 20% below what the local housing authority considers the fair market rental rate. And so not only do our participants, our tenants, benefit from at least 20% lower rental rates, they're also living in a house that's usually got 50% better utility rates than their next door neighbors in those same communities. So it's a double win. And when we're talking about folks who are trying to live on a fixed income of $1,500 or $1,800 a month, saving them $400 a month is huge. Right? And hopefully that goes out in ways that we don't even get to measure, like maybe better school supplies for their children or better lunches so their kids can pay better attention in school and get a 3.92 GPA and that kind of good stuff, you know. And that has multi-generational impact if that's how it's playing out. So that's our hope. And our methodology inside of Hope Restorations, if you looked at us from the outside and didn't know who we were, you'd think we're a for-profit general contractor renovating old houses and renting them out and making money. And that is absolutely true. The difference is we got a different definition of success and what profit is. For us, profit isn't a group of shareholders buying a bigger beach house. It's taking that money and reinvesting it over and over and over in the community. And to date, we have brought in over $5 million in outside funding into the Lenore County community. And we expect that as we get established in other counties that we'll do that kind of fundraising there too.
Council, any comments or questions?
I have two questions for you, just to educate. The intake process, is that number, the 252 number, is that the
Yes,
number that a
ma'am.
provider would call for the intake process? I absolutely love, Bailey, congratulations.
Thank you.
Wow,
Thank you.
that's amazing. And I love that your program is based on phases and not a timeline.
Yeah.
The next question I had is, are any of your houses equipped for mother and children? I was just wondering, for people that are watching, we've got a lot of people in our area that have a great need for your home. And so are any of them, do they have the capacity to accept moms and babies?
Not yet.
Not the transitional houses.
Yeah, not transitional.
Right. So the transitional housing programs is distinctly different and separate from the residential properties that we renovate as the financial basis of how we keep trying to replicate ourselves. So yeah, for our rentals, those are definitely available. We accept Section 8 vouchers and all that kind of stuff too.
Council, any other comments or questions?
This is good.
Right.
Very good.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations.
And keep us in the loop as things unfold.
Yeah.
One other thing that, if I could ask for y'all's help, because we're not from Lenore County. As we try to come in and get established, we need connections in the community. Who are the people that are trying to do help serve the similar people, and how can we partner with them? What do we need to know about your particular rules and regulations and how your local government and other agencies work? You know, so that we can not step on any more landmines than we have to along the way. We want to succeed.
You'll be receiving a phone call from the young lady sitting directly behind you.
Perfect.
In the coming days to see what we can do to help you leverage those connections.
Very good. Thank you all for listening to us and for accepting us into your community.
Thank you so much. All right, we'll move to item number D under presentations, a subcommittee report on our very successful MLK events back in January. Sure. Please.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members, and thank you for having me. I think that a picture is worth 1,000 words, and I just want to say before I begin my presentation that in order to be successful, you have to have a really good committee to work with. And I have worked with a lot of committees, but this committee was just outstanding. And we met through the winter, the spring, the summer, and the winter again. And we feel like we came together and we brought this community together for this event. So I would like to recognize Felicia Williams, of course, for all her help, and to Marcus Lewis, Councilman Roderick White, who was a member of the CCRD at that time, Councilwoman Hiawatha Jones, Amber Tyler, David Elliott, and myself. And we worked a lot, and it was worth it. And I think if you were there, I think all of you were, it was a very successful event. We want to give a special shout out to Councilwoman Hiawatha Jones and to Councilman Roderick White for being able to secure our speakers at no cost. And that really helped us a lot because our goal was not to owe any money when we finished the luncheon. And I think we made that goal. So if you will share with me a few minutes. Of course, our speaker was Representative Dan Blue, and he gave a good message. And you know, sometimes people speak a long time, but if they have something to say, it's very meaningful. And I've had so many people mention to me how they took something away that day from all his comments and everything. So we were glad to have him and his family come down. And this, the CCRD, and of course, Councilwoman Howard Jones was in their building, but she was not pictured. And we were all trying to wear black and gold. And of course, you know that Martin Luther King was a member of Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity, a historical black fraternity in the United States. And so I think the picture shows how we were all happy at the end, because I'm gonna be really honest with you, I did not know how it was gonna turn out. And I was really nervous and jittery the day before, a little tense. And then when we got there and looked outside and saw all those people waiting to come in, it really did touch my heart. So I was really pleased with that. And of course, you can see how we were working before anyone got there. And we had a nice letter from our mayor, who was just recently elected, and we were able to get that in our booklet. And then again, I think you recognize all the people in this picture. And thank you for coming. And of course, we had Carl and Shells as our caterers, and we really put a lot of work into this to make it successful. I think the picture shows you that it was well attended, and we actually had to stop selling tickets because we didn't have any more seats at the First Church. And we want to give a big shout out to them because they didn't charge us any money, so that helped us a lot as well. Everyone seems to be enjoying. And so, and I am a person that deals with a lot of numbers, and I want to share these numbers with you. Our catering was $11,545.15. Our decorations was $2,800. The program booklet from our AccuCopy was $689.34. Entertainment was $450. The Gassages, the boutonnieres, the Unity candle from Pinewood Florist was $229.26. The engraved pen set for the keynote speaker was $50.16. The MLK sponsorship letter postage was $165.06, which gave us a total of $15,928.97 in bills. Our revenue was $15,882.66. We had an MLK balance of $46.31. I paid the balance, and we have a zero balance. There was no seed money from the city of Goldsboro, so we want to thank the community and our sponsors for helping us put on this event. So I thank you so much. Are there any questions?
Thank you, madam.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
That concludes our presentations until our ceremonial documents at the end anyway. So we'll move directly into our public comment period. Up on the screen in just a couple of moments. Actually, it was already on the screen whenever you were first coming in. You saw the different policies on how we handle public comment. Ms. Getz will have the roll, those that signed in. Is anyone that wants to speak at public comment not yet been able to sign the roll? Perfect. Well, with that, Ms. Getz, please proceed.
We have one speaker.
Okay.
First name, Hildegard Fawcett.
Evening.
Hello. Oh, this mic, okay. Okay. Hi, council, mayor. My name is Hildegard Fawcett, and I own Shadowgraph Vintage, a vintage retailer with spaces located in Lola's Vintiques on Center Street in Goldsboro and also in the Southern Bostonian in Selma. For the past 3 years, I have been an active participant in street markets, such as the one held on Mulberry Street last Friday night, all across North Carolina from Charlotte to the Triangle to Wilmington. I am asking that you take into consideration that some businesses who are for-profit can still have the city's interest at heart and be beneficial for our downtown. While the pop-up street market feels like a new trend, its spirit is felt in institutions like the Curb Market and Farmers Market, which have held a long-standing cultural importance to our community. We now live in a time when a consumer can purchase a product with little, if any, human interaction. Additionally, the opportunity to meet the person who creates a product in most cases is virtually non-existent. My experience has shown me that there's a growing number of people who want the experience of purchasing a locally made product from a person that they can meet face to face. This extends to both the brick and mortar store as well as the street vendor. But while a brick and mortar store offers stability and consistency for the customer, the nature of the street market introduces variety and freshness. Used correctly and collaboratively, their parts create a stronger and healthier local economy. These new event ideas and street closures for markets might be uncharted territory for our downtown, but these are not new concepts. I believe that street markets would be highly beneficial to our area. The idea of a street market is to create an opportunity for small businesses to connect with their local community, generate more money circulating in our local economy, keep taxes local, and foster a unique local marketplace. Recently, those who have attempted to organize a street market have been recommended the Hub as the most appropriate venue. While the Hub is a great resource for all types of events, it makes more sense for pop-up vendors to set up alongside consenting brick and mortar stores instead of being corralled into a specified venue away from a majority of the established businesses. Street markets could be a valuable tool for bringing attention and foot traffic to the businesses of downtown Goldsboro that are located adjacent to Center Street. I believe that a policy requiring all events to be held at one singular location in downtown Goldsboro is limiting to the growth of our small business community and is a disservice to downtown's true potential. For those of us advocating the creation of fair policies for street markets and street closures, our intent isn't one based on selfish enterprise. Our hope is to see a local economy which is collaborative instead of merely competitive, creative instead of repetitive, and welcoming of businesses at every level of development. There is more that can be said regarding the benefits of such policies, and we hope that if the council would like to discuss solutions, it would reach out to those of us with the appropriate experience. Thank you for your time.
Mrs. Gutz, anyone else? All right, so with that, we'll close the public comment period. There were no items requiring individual action, so I'll move directly into the interim city manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to update the board and public, one of the big...
I'm sorry. Back up.
I wasn't really ready anyway, so...
Well, good. Thank you. And usually she throws hard objects at me to get my attention. Council, our next, having closed the public comment period, the next item is the consent agenda. We were able to move through all of the consent agenda items during the work session, and all of the red check marks are what got me thrown off here, so we now have to approve the consent agenda. So, do we have a motion from council to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda as amended and presented.
With the exclusion of items L and M, is what Councilman Wade is referencing. So a motion has been made to approve the consent agenda excluding items L and M. Is there a second? All right, motion has been made and seconded. Is there any further debate? Hearing none, roll call.
Mayor Gaylor.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Matthews.
No.
Councilwoman Jones.
Yes.
Councilman Boyette.
Yes.
Councilwoman Taylor. Yes. Councilwoman Weeks.
Yes.
Councilman White.
No. Motion passes. All right. Now, going back to the agenda, there were no items requiring individual action, and we will now move into the city manager's report. Mr. Livingston, my apologies for cutting you off earlier.
That's fine, Mayor. I appreciate it, Council. We're in the middle of trying to wrap up our audit. We've made a lot of progress there. Once we get this done, we will be caught up. I've directed staff to make sure we absolutely finish by the end of this fiscal year. We're hoping we'll do a little sooner than that, but that's going to get us caught up, and that's a really big deal. So, for the finance staff, that is their number one priority. But at the same time, we're also still working on a budget. The department heads are very feverishly working on their budgets to get those submitted to finance and myself. And then another part of that triumvirate of big rocks, that I call them, heavy lifting that we have to do is doing our CIP. So all the priorities that we talked about in our retreat, we're putting into a sort of a bare bones kind of CIP because we need more information so that we can provide you the information to help make decisions there. And I've also reviewed the OSA reports, and I think that those are things that are important, but we've moved through a lot of those with a lot of the policies and procedures that the city council has been wise enough to adopt. And some of those things were judgment issues that, hopefully we've learned from. So, and Mayor, you asked me to look into the parking. We'll have more information on that on the 18th. But we have done an interactive map that's on the town's website that talks about where all the handicap parking is. And some of the lighting that we've improved downtown has been something we've been working on, and adding potentially some more handicap spaces. So we're still in the process of doing that, but we'll have a full report on the 18th. And that's it for me. Any questions?
Any comments or questions for the city manager at this time? All right, hearing none, we'll move into ceremonial documents. This is actually something that dawned on me this past week. This is the first time in the history of our city that we've had a majority woman city council. So y'all know my family history was the first female, and now of course we've had our first black female, and now we have our first majority female city council. So just a moment ago I asked if Mayor Pro Tem Matthews would read the Women's History Month proclamation, and then she had another suggestion, and so with that I'll let you take over if you would, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for the acknowledgement. I would like to read this proclamation, but I will ask the other women that I serve with if they would like to share in reading this proclamation. I'll read a little and I'll just pass. Women's History Month proclamation. Whereas women of every race, class, and ethnic background have made historic contributions to the growth and strength of our nation in countless recorded and unrecorded ways. And whereas women have played and continue to play critical economic, cultural, and social roles in every shape of the life by constituting a significant portion of the labor force working inside and outside of the home. And whereas women have played a unique role throughout the history of the nation by providing the majority of the volunteer labor force. And
whereas women were particularly important in the establishment of early charitable, philanthropic, and cultural institutions in our nation. And whereas women of every race, class, and ethnic background served as early leaders in the forefront of every major progressive social change movement. And
whereas women have served our country courageously in the military, and whereas women have been leaders not only in securing their own rights of suffrage and equal opportunity, but also in the abolitionist movement, the emancipation movement, the industrial labor movement, the civil rights movement, and other movements, especially the peace movement, which create a more fair and just society for all. And
whereas, despite these contributions, the role of the women have been constantly overlooked and undervalued in the literature, teaching, and study of history. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Goldsboro City Council does hereby proclaim the month of March 2024 as Women's History Month. In the city of Goldsboro, encourage all citizens to observe this month by participating in and supporting all festivities celebrating the proud history and many accomplishments of the women.
let Brandy finish it.
Finish it up.
all right, in the city, in witness whereof I hereunto set my hand and affix the seal of the city of Goldsboro, this the 4th day of March 2024.
Ladies, thank you. So with that, it being the first meeting of the month, is our tradition that we begin with District 1 for any council member comments. And so with that, Ms. Jones, if you have any comments.
Yes, I know that we're going to talk about the street parkings, but the elderly ladies that do get their hair done on Walnut Street asked me to thank the individuals that did give the placard cards, because it really did help, and they were not worried about getting a ticket, not even a warning ticket. And so they felt very secure that they could go in and get their hair done, perm, or whatever they needed to do, and didn't have to walk so far and didn't have to worry about getting up when their hair was being washed or permed or whatever. And then the last thing is, I had an opportunity to go to 2 cookies with a cop, and I just encourage everyone, whenever you see the advertisement with cookies with a cop, regardless to where it is. I went in my district, but wherever it is, if you get an opportunity, please go and speak with the cops. We're really trying to work on the communication with the citizens and the cops. It was very informative. I learned something each time I go. I went twice, and I'm really chunky, but I'm getting even more chunkier because they actually had wings and tacos. It said cookie with the cop, but they had some more food there, and it was really good. And we did have some good communication about the crime in our city.
Councilmember Boyette?
No comment, Mayor.
All right. Councilmember Taylor?
I would just like to say that I enjoyed our presentation tonight, especially the Lady Cougars and the Hope Restoration program. I'm happy to see that in our community, and I look forward to seeing them do the work they've done in Lenoir County, in Wayne County.
Thank you. Pro Tem?
Tomorrow's election day, so just want to encourage everyone to go out and vote.
Councilman Weeks?
I was just going to mention that we have the North Carolina Main Street Conference coming up March 12th through the 14th, and we honor downtown Goldsboro 40 years as an exemplary Main Street community. So we're so proud of Down Street Goldsboro. Thank you to all the city employees, the community, the volunteers for getting ready for that conference and have worked so tediously. And congratulations to the Goldsboro Cougars. You ladies truly have inspired me tonight. Like, I'm going home filled with joy. It was just so inspirational. Thank you.
Councilman White?
Mr. Mayor, first of all, I'd like to thank the Lady Cougars for showing up tonight and the work that they did in the classroom. Oftentimes, we often talk about the 20% that's distracting, and we never take the time to celebrate the 80% of the students at Goldsboro High School who are doing positive. I want everybody to know that there are positive things going on at Goldsboro High School despite all the rumors that are in our community. I think this is something that we should build upon, not just Goldsboro High School, but if there's achievement that our kids are doing within our community, let us know so we can celebrate them and highlight the positives and kind of stamp out some of the negatives. We know we got shortcomings to fix, but we need to always celebrate the things that we do well. I had the pleasure of going to the superintendent's budget meeting, and I drew from that nothing that I didn't know before, that poverty is a direct correlation to our low achievement gap because we don't have the resources to compete with others. I did some research in my office this morning, and out of locally funded school systems, who are 81 out of 125 locally funded school systems. So I think that we could do a lot better there. And I understand we'll say we don't have the tax base, but we find the money to do the things that we want to do or that we find important to do. I hope that in the near future that the superintendent finds it a time in his schedule to have an open forum for those students and teachers at Goldsboro High School so that we can discuss the thing openly. And I noticed that the Board of Education and the City Council meetings are on the first Monday of each month. I talked with the city attorney, and it is a charter thing, but I do think that we need to look at that because as local leaders, we need to be engaged in our children's learning and just the presence. I understand that the City Council don't have a dog in the fight as far as voting is concerned, but we're not without influence on what go on in our communities. So I do think we need to really look at that. And please, I know we're going to talk about it on March 18th about parking, but look at the signs down here downtown. I took a walk downtown and I noticed that they're not in each parking spot. So I started to look for the arrows to see if it said from this point to this point, no parking, but it's not. So you might have a parking sign here and then you go 4 parking spaces and there's no sign. So I just don't want people to think that you can park there because there's no sign, or we need to get that fixed. So that's just another thing to add to our talking about our parking issue downtown.
Thank you, Councilman. This past week, got to go and spend some time with our partners on base, a lot of the colonel rank, as well as some majors and captains, learning about what the base needs, the mission of the base, the evolution of the mission of the base, and I just could not be more appreciative for their hospitality in the moment, but their work and their commitment overall. Just a fantastic experience, and left with a couple of things that we're not going to talk about publicly right now, but a few things that we want to try and pursue as some partnerships that obviously we will be able to talk about, about publicly when the time is right. Just a phenomenal operation that they have, and as we all know, there will be a change of command here pretty soon, so we look forward to having another asset downrange who is an advocate for Team Seymour, and then having a new base commander who will always be an advocate for Team Seymour. So I congratulate them for what they're doing and appreciate their time and hospitality. Next, with Main Street coming up, this is going to be a huge economic driver for the city and for the county. Remember that this is one of those events that is truly a heads and beds event. This is going to pull in hundreds of people from around the state that are coming, and they're going to be, of course, eating in the restaurants and staying in the hotels. It's a really big tourism driver, and I know our hoteliers are, I know they're booked, and so that's great. The employees, I know so many city employees have been tasked with making Center Street look like something out of a theme park right now. I mean, it's just absolutely gorgeous, and I know that is not sustainable year-round. I don't pretend it should be. I'm just saying that right now it looks absolutely amazing. It is ready to be a venue and ready to be a showcase. I appreciate all the work that you're having to do to pull it off, all of the organizing, Adam Twist over at the Paramount helping me record a welcome. There's so many pieces that go into this, and I appreciate what every single person does, including the folks that are blowing off the streets trying to get stuff ready. I really appreciate what you're doing. Next, and kind of the big hairy animal in the room, is our budget. We've got department heads that are going through their prioritizations and budgets and getting things over to the finance director and getting things over to our interim city manager, and appreciate all of the work that takes, in addition to all of the other day-to-day tasks that keep everyone busy. There's not an abundance of free time, and so those that are putting in a lot of it right now, I really do appreciate what you're doing. Obviously, my door is always open, so please don't forget to stop by. That concludes my comments, council member comments, I believe. We do not have a closed session that I'm aware of, unless y'all have come up with something since the work session. So with that, at slightly before 8 o'clock, we will adjourn.